There comes a sacred moment, a quiet, unseen shift, when heaven leans close to listen. A breath in time where your whisper reaches the heart of God and His presence fills the air around you. That moment is here. This isn't just another message, and it's not just another prayer. It's a doorway, one that can unlock the flow of miracles in your life. So don't just listen. Lean in, because by the time you reach the end, something within you will begin to change. If you stay through the final word, you won't just hear about miracles. You'll step right into one. You've cried, you've waited, you've wondered if God heard you. But the moment you pray, not in fear or doubt, but with faith, something starts shifting in the unseen world. Heaven doesn't react to perfect words. It responds to a sincere heart. When your heart opens, when your soul lets go, when your voice agrees with God's truth, the impossible begins to bow. Say this not with worry, but with trust. Father, I can't, but you can. I step aside so you can step in. I release what I cannot change, and I receive what only you can do. Let your will be done. Let your power move. Let your glory shine through my life. Amen. It's not complicated. It's not dramatic. But when spoken in faith, this prayer carries power. Because it's not about your effort, your perfection, or your record. It's about God, His mercy, His strength, His unchanging love. This prayer doesn't make you a beggar. It reminds you that you're His child. You're not hoping for help. You're expecting His hand to move. It's the sound of belief, the sound of surrender, the sound of a heart that dares to trust. When faith speaks, heaven listens. And in that instant, angels move, chains break, and new doors begin to open. God isn't waiting for the perfect day. He's waiting for your yes, your surrender, your trust. Never underestimate what can happen when a sincere heart prays a simple prayer. Miracles don't just happen by chance. They're not random acts of favor meant for a few special people. No, miracles are heaven's direct response to words spoken in faith. They are what happens when a believing heart dares to speak and heaven answers. From the very beginning, everything in creation came into existence through words. God said, "Let there be light," and light appeared. Words shape the universe, and they still carry that same divine power, especially when they're spoken with faith. There's a mystery in the power of words that many people never fully understand. You can believe something deeply in your heart, but until you speak it out loud, that belief often remains inactive. Faith isn't quiet. It's bold. It's spoken, and it declares what it believes even when nothing seems to change. The power of spoken faith doesn't come from shouting, using fancy words, or trying to impress others. Its strength comes from sincerity, confidence, and a steady belief that what you say in faith will come to pass. Your mouth is a bridge between the unseen and the seen. Through your words, thoughts from your heart become actions in your life. What you believe inside becomes real the moment you speak it with faith. When you speak with faith, you're not just saying something hopeful. You're making a spiritual declaration. It's like issuing a decree in the courts of heaven, and heaven responds to the sound of faith. The unseen world moves when you speak as though it's already done, when you declare healing even while pain remains, or peace even when storms still rage. This isn't magic or wishful thinking. It's your spirit aligning with God's will, speaking as He speaks, calling things that don't yet exist into being. Every miracle begins with a word, whether whispered in quiet prayer or spoken with boldness. The difference is in the spirit behind it. When faith fills your words, they become powerful. Your prayer becomes an open door for God to step into your situation and change it. Many people miss their miracle because they hold back their words. They wait for the perfect moment, for proof, or for their pain to disappear. But faith doesn't wait. It speaks first, believes first, and then sees the results. Faith doesn't ask for evidence. It asks for trust. Speaking words of faith doesn't mean you're ignoring reality. It means you're declaring a higher truth, that what you see is temporary, but what you can't see yet is eternal and far more powerful. The enemy of your soul knows this truth well. That's why he wants to keep you silent. Because silence, when born from fear or doubt, can trap you. When you stop speaking in faith, you stop releasing power. When you stop declaring God's goodness over your life, fear takes its place. The enemy fears your voice when it's filled with truth. He trembles when your words align with God's will, because your words can shift the atmosphere, command angels, and break chains in the spirit. The greatest miracles often begin with the simplest words. Be healed. It is finished. Let it be done. These may sound simple, but they are full of faith. You don't have to convince God with long, impressive prayers. You just need to believe enough to speak what your heart knows is true. Even if your voice shakes, even if your circumstances seem impossible, speak anyway. Speak with the confidence of a child who knows they are loved, not with the fear of a beggar hoping to be noticed. Words spoken in faith carry weight. They don't just disappear. They're planted in the soil of the Spirit, and in the right time they produce fruit. Every time you speak healing, freedom, restoration, or breakthrough, you're not just talking, you're building something. You're shaping an atmosphere where miracles can happen. And when God sees faith in motion, He steps into that moment and begins to do what only He can. But let's be clear, this isn't about wishful thinking. It's not about claiming things out of pride or empty confidence. It's about alignment. When your heart, your thoughts, and your words line up with God's truth, power is released. That kind of alignment is where miracles begin. You become a vessel, a channel through which heaven touches earth. The miracle starts the moment your voice echoes what heaven has already promised. Think about it. How many times have you stayed silent, waiting for something to change, waiting for a sign or a feeling? But what if the change you've been waiting for is waiting on your voice? What if your miracle is waiting for you to speak it into being? You don't need to pray 1,000 prayers. You just need one prayer spoken in faith, one declaration that says, God, I trust you. Even now, that one sentence said from a sincere heart carries more power than hours of empty repetition. And there's something sacred about hearing yourself speak truth. When you declare it out loud, your ears hear it, your spirit absorbs it, and your faith begins to grow. Speaking faith isn't only about moving heaven, it's also about changing you. It renews your mind, it quiets your fears, it strengthens your trust in God. It reminds you that you're not powerless, not forgotten, and not controlled by your circumstances. You are working alongside your Creator. Your voice becomes the sound that sets miracles in motion, and heaven leans in to respond. Never underestimate the power of your words when they're filled with faith. Miracles aren't far away. They're waiting. And the moment you speak in faith, the miracle begins. Something remarkable happens when a person stops whispering their faith and starts declaring it boldly, not with pride, but with holy confidence, the kind that comes from knowing who you are and who your God is. Heaven doesn't stay silent when faith speaks boldly. It responds, it moves, it acts. Boldness isn't just a personality trait. It's a spiritual posture. It's the attitude of someone who refuses to let fear control them, who won't be paralyzed by uncertainty, who chooses to obey God right away. It's the voice that stands before the Red Sea and says, I will cross. Throughout Scripture and in our own lives, one pattern is clear. Heaven responds to bold people, those who pray big prayers, believe for impossible things, and speak with conviction even when everything looks hopeless. Not because they're trying to impress anyone, but because they're confident that the one they're speaking to is listening. Faith doesn't whisper when it's been tested and proven. When someone has been through the storm and still lifts their hands to declare God's goodness, that person becomes unstoppable. That kind of boldness draws heaven's attention. Angels stand ready when faith speaks with courage. Yes, there are times when quiet faith is enough, when a simple whisper of prayer moves the heart of God. But there are also moments when your situation demands a louder faith, when you must speak louder than your fear, louder than your doubt, louder than your past. When your history tells you you'll never change, when the enemy whispers that your prayers don't matter, that's when boldness must rise. That's when you stand right where you are, whether in your living room, a hospital bed, or in the middle of chaos, and declare, I will not die here. I will live and tell of the goodness of God. Bold declarations aren't for show. They're for battle. They're spiritual weapons. Every word of faith you speak pushes back darkness and invites heaven's power into your situation. You're not just talking. You're authorizing. You're inviting God's will to break through into your life. just as it is in heaven. And this kind of boldness doesn't come from hype. It's born from revelation. It's birthed in those quiet moments when you've learned to trust God, not only when things are going well, but when everything seems to be falling apart. When you've seen him come through before, boldness becomes natural. You speak boldly not to get God's attention, but because you know you already have it. Boldness isn't about being loud. It's about being sure. It's standing firm on God's promises and refusing to move. Heaven responds when you speak as though you truly believe God is listening. When you stop begging and start declaring. When you stop waiting for the perfect moment and begin to speak peace into your storm. Peace, be still. You must understand your voice carries weight in the spiritual realm. Your words, when filled with faith, carry heaven's authority. That's not a poetic phrase. It's a real truth you need to live by. Remember how Jesus often asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" He already knew, but he wanted people to speak it out loud. The blind cried out, and he answered. The woman with the issue of blood spoke to herself first, "If I just touch him, I will be healed." There is always a sound before the shift, always a word before the miracle. When you speak boldly in faith, you're not forcing God's hand. You're agreeing with his nature. He is a healer, a provider, a miracle worker. And when your words match who he is, miracles begin to happen. Your faith stirs the atmosphere. Your declaration silences the enemy. Your voice breaks through doubt. Bold declarations aren't for the proud. They're for the desperate and the determined. They're for those who have made up their minds not to back down, not to stay silent, but to keep speaking until heaven responds. So what does it mean to declare boldly? It means you don't wait until you feel strong or fearless. You speak God's truth even when everything inside you feels weak or uncertain. You say, "I am healed," even while the pain is still there. You say, "God is restoring my family," even when relationships still look broken. You say, "Provision is coming," even when the bills are still piling up. Boldness isn't pretending the problem doesn't exist. It's choosing to see through eyes of faith instead of what you see in front of you. The truth is, bold declarations don't just change your circumstances. They change you. They strengthen your spirit. They remind your heart who your God is. They shake off doubt and light a fire of courage within you. And that courage spreads. When others hear your boldness, their faith rises too. Your voice becomes like a trumpet, a signal to heaven saying, "I'm ready. I believe. Let it be done." You might be standing right on the edge of your miracle and not even know it. One word could change everything. One faith-filled declaration could open a door that's been closed for years. But you have to speak it, not softly, not halfway, boldly, knowing that when you speak in faith, God hears and God moves. Heaven doesn't respond to perfection. It responds to bold trust. If you've been waiting for heaven to move, maybe heaven has been waiting for you to speak. The time for silence is over. The time for fear is finished. Open your mouth and declare who God is, what he's promised, and what he's about to do. Not someday, but now. Because the very moment you speak with faith and boldness, something begins to stir in the unseen. Chains start to loosen. Darkness starts to shake. Healing starts to rise. And heaven, yes, heaven, begins to move. There's a prayer, simple in words but powerful in spirit, that breaks every chain, lifts every burden, and silences every torment. It's not built on fancy words or long rituals. It's born from the heart, a cry of surrender so pure that it shakes the foundations of darkness. When this prayer is spoken in faith, it breaks strongholds and fills the soul with peace that can't be shaken. Strongholds aren't always things you can see. They're often invisible walls. Fear, shame, addiction, doubt, depression, or anxiety that keep us trapped even when we look fine on the outside. These are spiritual prisons built over time through pain, lies, and unhealed wounds. The enemy doesn't always need to chain your body when he can chain your mind. That's why so many people walk through life smiling, functioning, even succeeding, yet still bound inside. But prayer has the power to break through those invisible walls. It's not a religious duty, it's a divine exchange where we hand over our weakness and receive God's strength, where we let go of our burdens and he takes them on himself, When prayer comes from a place of surrender and total trust, it becomes more than words. It becomes a weapon, a supernatural force that tears down strongholds with precision only heaven can bring. This kind of prayer doesn't beg, it believes. It doesn't panic, it proclaims. It's filled with truth, soaked in faith, and spoken with humility. It sounds like this: God, I can't do this on my own. I need you. Break what needs to be broken, heal what needs to be healed. Take what I have and make it what you desire. Let your will be done in my life, not mine. I trust you completely. When that prayer leaves your lips, heaven listens closely, because that's the sound of faith, the sound of surrender. And wherever there is surrender, there is power. This prayer breaks strongholds not because of how loud it is, but because of how real it is. It exposes every lie, dismantles every scheme of the enemy, and declares, you no longer have authority here. In that moment, light begins to flood the places where darkness once lived. Peace starts to rise, not as a passing feeling, but as a new reality. A calm beyond understanding takes root deep inside. And suddenly, the storm no longer controls you, because the Prince of Peace now reigns within you. There comes a moment in every person's life when heaven quietly extends an invitation, an opportunity to step out of the ordinary and encounter the eternal. It's not loud or dramatic. It comes softly, like a whisper, waiting for your response. Many miss it, not because they're bad or unworthy, but because they're too busy, too distracted, too afraid, or too convinced they need to fix themselves first. But heaven doesn't wait for perfection. It waits for willingness. This invitation isn't for the perfect, the polished, or the religious. It's for the broken, for the tired, for the ones who have run out of strength and don't know what else to do. It's for the person who feels empty but still has a small spark of hope left. It's for you, right here, right now. When you say yes to that invitation, you're not just agreeing to believe in God. You're entering into a relationship with the Creator Himself. You're stepping into a promise where He says, I will be with you. I will guide you. I will heal you. I will provide for you. I will never leave you. This isn't a transaction. It's a transformation. The moment you say yes to heaven, heaven says yes to you. And in that sacred exchange, something shifts. The heaviness lifts. The shame dissolves. Fear loses its grip. And peace, deep, lasting peace, begins to fill every part of you that once felt empty. Heaven's invitation isn't about joining a religion. It's about meeting the living God for yourself. It's about experiencing His presence in a way that changes everything from the inside out. And here's the beautiful truth. That invitation is always open, always available, always waiting. You don't have to fix yourself first. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to wait until you feel worthy. Come as you are. Bring your doubts, your pain, your questions, and even your mess. Heaven isn't asking for perfection. It's asking for honesty. When you respond with a sincere heart, you're met with grace, pure, unearned, and overflowing. And in that grace, you find freedom. Freedom from the pressure to earn love. Freedom from guilt and shame. Freedom from the lies that kept you bound for so long. This is your moment. This is your invitation. Will you say yes? So many people spend their lives waiting for a miracle to happen around them, waiting for doors to open, circumstances to change, or blessings to appear. And yes, God works in those ways. But there's an even greater miracle He wants to do within you. It's the miracle of a changed heart, the miracle of a renewed mind, the miracle of a soul that's finally free. That inner transformation becomes the foundation for every outward blessing. Because miracles aren't just about changing your situation, they're about changing you. When your heart changes, your perspective changes. When your faith rises, your world begins to shift. When your soul aligns with heaven's purpose, everything around you starts to come into order. The greatest miracle isn't just a healed body, though that's amazing. It isn't just financial provision, though that's important. The greatest miracle is a soul that comes alive to its true identity and purpose. It's a heart once hardened by bitterness, now softened by love. It's a mind once filled with fear, now anchored in peace. This kind of inner change is the key to lasting transformation. Without it, blessings can become burdens. Money without wisdom leads to trouble. Success without character leads to emptiness. And healing without purpose leads nowhere. But when the miracle happens inside you, everything you touch begins to thrive. You become a vessel that carries the presence of God. You don't have to chase miracles. They start to follow you, drawn to the light that shines from within. This is what heaven wants for you. Not just relief, but renewal. Not just temporary help, but lasting change. Not just survival, but a life that overflows with purpose. The miracle you've been praying for might not look the way you expected. It may come quietly, in a form you didn't imagine. But if you open your heart and let God move within you, what happens will be greater than anything you could have dreamed. Because when God transforms you from the inside out, nothing and no one can stop the good that begins to flow from your life. Faith is not passive. It's not just sitting back and hoping something good happens. Faith is active. It lives with expectation. It believes so strongly that it starts to prepare for what hasn't yet appeared. It speaks as though it's already done. It acts as though it's already happening. It trusts as though the answer is already guaranteed. That kind of faith shakes the enemy, because expectation creates the atmosphere for miracles. When you live expecting God to move, you make room for the supernatural to show up. You align yourself with what God has already prepared. Expectation isn't wishful thinking. It's built on who God is. It rests on His promises, His faithfulness, and His unchanging nature. When you expect God to move, you're not being arrogant. You're honoring Him. You're saying, I believe you are who you say you are. Living in expectation means waking up each day, not wondering if God will move, but watching how He will. It means staying alert and aware, ready to recognize His hand at work in the small things and the big ones. It means thanking Him before the answer comes, worshiping before the breakthrough, and praising Him before the victory. That's what real faith looks like, and it moves heaven. It touches God's heart. It releases provision, opens doors, and brings the impossible to life. So stop living in fear of being disappointed. Stop trying to protect yourself with half-hearted faith. Lean all the way in. Expect God to do what He said He would do. Expect healing. Expect breakthrough. Expect restoration. When you live with that kind of faith, you won't be disappointed, because God never fails those who trust Him. He honors faith. He rewards expectation. And He delights in showing Himself strong to those who dare to believe. If you've made it this far, it's not an accident. You're reading this because heaven arranged it. There's something deep in your spirit that knows this is your moment. This is your breakthrough. Everything you've been through, the pain, the waiting, the tears, the confusion, has led you here. And heaven is asking, will you believe? Will you surrender? Will you trust? The prayer is simple, but it carries power. Father, I can't, but you can. I step aside so you can step in. I give you what I can't fix and receive what only you can do. Let your will be done. Let your power flow. Let your glory be seen in my life. Amen. That's it. Simple, real, powerful. And the moment you speak it in faith, things begin to move. Chains break. Doors open. Heaven responds. This isn't the end. This is your beginning. The start of a new life, marked by miracles, sustained by faith, and anchored in God's presence. Walk boldly, speak with authority, live with expectation, because you are not who you used to be. You are a child of the Most High, and your miracle has already begun.